Very, very happy to be here and see a lot of colleagues and friends again. And I've just come here straight from Jamshedpur, India, where I have spent the last 18 months doing something which was a little bit of an experiment. And so I've actually changed the title a little bit. I called it a model for achieving welfare because I think we've gotten to the point of not just improving, but actually having achieved it. And we're doing it through a methodology based on human behavior change. So in India, there's an estimated population of around 30 million roaming dogs, and the national legislation mandates that animal birth control programs have to be implemented in the cities. Now, yesterday, ICAM Coalition, we talk a lot about impact. What are we actually making a difference? And so in ABC programs, you've got, looking at impact level, you've got three main stakeholders that the municipalities really don't want to deal with any sort of dog-related complaints. You've got the general public that don't want the dog nuisance and the dog bites. But most of the time, you've got the NGOs who are the implementation agency on the ground. And what we're trying to do is to improve dog welfare. And on every level, we are looking at, in order to improve the welfare, we are looking to improve the human and dog relationship and safety. The big question, what we're trying to get at in terms of impact is, if we can improve human and dog relationship, then we will have higher tolerance from the public, and their behavior towards the street dogs should improve the welfare. At the same time, we are implementing ABC in a country and in a culture where animal welfare is not understood. So within the programs ourselves, we also have to look at our staff, ABC staff. An ultimate goal, what we're looking at is, how do we get the ABC staff, our project staff, and the general public to treat the street dogs with care and compassion? It's a very, very big question. How do we teach people to care from a background that looks at the street dogs mainly as a health risk, public health risk, for disease, for dog bite issues? There's no love for these animals. These animals are treated as vermin. So in most ABC programs, what the public sees is when the dog catchers are out on the street and they're catching dogs. And this is the most common scene across India. And if we look at this situation based upon what the public sees, it's not the safe, cuddly, pet companion dogs that we see in the West. So we have a public perception that there is danger in dealing with this animal, which has to be caught using a pole or a net. We also look at the interaction between the staff and the animal, and in these interactions, you have the staff fighting with the animal because the animal does not want to be caught. The staff is at risk of being bitten. They have to handle the animal carefully, and this is not a positive relationship. So the question is, how do we change this? In Jamshedpur, we looked at it from a human behavior change approach. So one of the first things we set about doing is we wanted to change the relationship between the ABC staff and the street dogs from enemies to friends. Just as many of us enjoy our relationship with dogs, we enjoy petting dogs, cuddling dogs, we want to get the staff to that kind of level in their dog interaction. And when you're implementing a project, an ABC project in a place like India, most of the project staff are local, and most of them don't like dogs. They're only working there because they need a job. So we have to change the relationship for the ABC staff. Then the second point we wanted to do was we wanted to show the public what we want them to see. We don't want them to see an aggressive dog. We don't want them to see a dangerous animal. We want them to see the dog as a companion animal, as a best friend, the image that we are trying to portray as animal welfare organizations. And ultimately, the third point was that in order to have happy animals and good welfare for the animals, you have to have happy staff. And there's a huge HR management issue in developing countries, and my experience in India has taught me a lot. That will take a whole separate presentation that I'm not going to cover here. But that is also part of the HBC approach that has been implemented in Jamshedpur. So in Jamshedpur, because this was a pilot project, we started out with a brand new team. And we picked people with no dog background whatsoever. And instead of just, training them in a skill of going out and catching dogs, we actually sat them down and took them through a 5-day training program where they learned all about the dog as an animal, learned about dog body language, learned about what dog feels, sees, what is important to this animal, and learned about how their own body language is interpreted by the dog, teaching the staff how to communicate with this animal. And this training, in theory, is then followed by practical training in the field, which is dog behavior surveys. I'll touch upon that. In other projects, if you have an existing project and an experienced team on the ground, I will say that you can pass by the theory if you don't have the time, and actually do practical training on the job when you have the right environment for that. Because that is the stage where the Jamshedpur project is now, where we can take in new people without having to sit them through the workshop, and they're actually learning about dog behavior and dog welfare. What's very important is the dog behavior surveys, and this is a key part of a new project as well as the training process. That the new staff goes out into the community, and we interact with the dogs. Most of the time we go out with lots of biscuits, and we just feed the dogs biscuits and see how the dog responds to our body language when we approach them in a friendly way. And the dogs are scored on a dog behavior score on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being a very, very friendly dog that can be easily petted and picked up. And we use a mobile phone app technology, which also logs Google locations. We take a photo of every single interaction, and we are able to record their behavior score, as well as lots of other data. This kind of ongoing interaction allows the staff to have continued positive interactions with the dogs. There's no pressure to catch. There's no pressure to interact beyond what the dog wants to interact with. And at the same time, we're gathering data to prepare for the start of the project. Where are we going to catch? How many dogs are there? So on this Google map that is generated, the green dogs are all the ones which are score of B5, which means that they can be petted and easily picked up. They have no fear of human interactions. The yellow ones are scores of B4, which means they're happy to be petted, but a little bit shy and not sure when you try to lift them off the ground. It just means it takes a few more minutes for those dogs, but these dogs are also very easily handled. And I'm showing you photos from the very beginning of our project. These guys don't have their staff uniforms yet. And the guy on the right is holding this dog. He's not very, very sure, but he's quite excited. It's probably the first dog he's ever picked up and held in that way. And the guy on the left, this is probably one of the first dogs he's ever petted. So this is reinforcing this kind of interaction as they're learning to read the dog body language. And also, while we're out there conducting the dog behavior surveys, we're starting the community engagement. We're starting to talk to people about who we are and what we do, and making them ready that we're going to be coming back in a few weeks' time, and that we're going to be taking the dogs for sterilization and vaccination. So that's the setup, and for the Jamshedpur project, we did dog behavior surveys and training for about 2 to 3 weeks before the project actually started with our first surgery and catching. Now, at the moment, the Jamshedpur project is known for its hand-catching technique. And the hand-catching technique was actually developed for the purpose of changing human behavior as well as improving dog welfare. So number one key is that we want sustained exposure to emotionally rewarding interactions with dogs to promote compassion in staff. We want our staff to love these dogs. We want them to feel good about every single time they're interacting with these animals. So they had, in the beginning, it is just what I call cuddle catching. You pick them up and there's no fighting, no struggling, there's no equipment. And they do this 1 dog, 2 dogs, 5 dogs, 10 dogs on a daily basis. They're catching animals. And all they're doing is learning how to build friendship with these street dogs. And it's very emotionally satisfying when the dog trusts them and they're able to pick them up. The second part in this hand catching as a tool is that there's also a very good data collection and monitoring system to support it, so that every single dog caught actually has a photograph of that catching and of the handling. So the diagram on the right, it has currently the database has around 8,000, 10,000 photos of dogs being hand caught. And there's no disputing that these dogs are handled in this manner. And if you are not there on the ground every single day, this is a very good way to monitor your staff and what they're doing with the animals as well. And again, this is being done through a mobile phone app technology. And at the same time, we are focused on human behavior change at the community level, so that we want to show people that the dogs are not dirty and dangerous as they know it, that we want the people to stop fearing these animals. And we do it not by so much talking and education, but simply showing them. And the people in the community are astounded. They often ask us, do we drug the dogs with the biscuits? Are we doing dog hypnosis? What it is that we're doing. Why are these animals that they perceive as aggressive just, being picked up like this on a daily basis? And because we work in an area repeatedly, they're seeing this every single day, and this is sustained exposure to a model of compassion, to visions of compassion that we want them to see. Oh, sorry. And part of that is also the focus on community engagement. The project doesn't have a separate education program. The project doesn't have a separate community education component. The community engagement component is the dog catching, is the dog release. Whenever our team is out there, if there's anybody standing there and watching, then they're engaging. So this is on the left side, you see a group of school children. This is not a school visit. We just happened to be working next to a school area, and the children came out watching. And so the staff takes time to stop and talk to the children, explain what it is that we're doing. And similarly, on the right, again, there's a group of three children and 1 adult, and the staff will take the time to stop. Yes, we're going to meet targets. Yes, they have to catch a certain number of dogs, but that doesn't stop the community engagement. Wherever there is opportunity, community engagement is priority. And the second part of community engagement is, again, the wonderful system that it's supported, that we are able to demonstrate to the community very clearly that to get their support. So in our work, we have GPS locations of every single dog that we catch. When we take the photo at the moment of catching, that logs the GPS coordinates. Then the database is able to generate a release map. We're doing it through the Google Maps application. And then that map is able to be viewed on mobile phones, and our drivers are able to follow the track and release the dog in the exact same location from where it is caught. We do this every day, and we have a 100% return rate guarantee. And this gains the community's trust, support from the owners, and also the respect from the public really boosts staff morale. I don't know, but our staff do get invited in for tea a lot, and people very, very happy to see them, and there's a very, very good relationship with the community. And that's not the normal response or image of dog catchers in India. People don't view dog catchers like that. So even though for the team, they know that it's very hard work, they know within the community they're viewed very low, but while they're doing the work, they get a lot of support from the community, and that's very, very important. Also, that I want to emphasize, it is not a new technique. It is not a new technique for catching. That this is about teaching compassion and caring and bringing that welfare element into the project. So once the dog is caught, it isn't just thrown into the vehicle and then everything else is the same as any other ABC projects. Now the welfare focus and the compassion has to be sustained throughout the entire project. So the staff has learned that dogs are scared. Through the entire process, we're frightening the animals by taking them out of a location into a vehicle that they've never been in, to a new location, and something strange is being done to them. So the staff understands that the general emotion that the dog is feeling is insecurity and fear. During the transport, I have dogs that are, unrestrained in the back of the vehicle, and animal welfare officers are in the back of the vehicle. They're usually petting the dogs, keeping the dogs calm, talking to them, cleaning up if the dogs are vomiting or anything like that. Once inside the clinic, again, there is no rough handling allowed. So every single physical interaction between staff and dog has to maintain that compassion. The dog is weighed on a scale. It's not being hung. The dog is not carried by its legs. The dog is supported and carried properly. And you just see hand handling throughout, because there's no need for any other form of handling most of the time, that the dogs are being carried and any sort of transport, loading, release. This kind of compassion and welfare focus is maintained throughout the entire ABC process from catching to release. And during release time as well, there's more community engagement. As long as people are watching, we stop to talk to them. So this is a pilot project, and we weren't really sure what was going to happen. And in the beginning, we had no targets set for the first 3 months. There was no pressure on the team to catch dogs. I was out in the field with them every single day to monitor the catching. So if you start to pick up the dog and the dog starts squirming, we let that dog go. So there was no target. They caught as many as they could. And it was 100% hand catching as well. So for the first 15 months of this project, there was no other equipment that was being used. The dogs were just being picked up by their hand. So for 15 months, for over a year, the staff is having continued, sustained, positive interaction with the dogs, where the dogs are very dependent on them and the dogs are very trusting of them. And this was part of the way of teaching the staff to care. There was no use of force was taught. That other kinds of hand catching technique like scruffing, that was never taught, and it actually wasn't allowed until much later in the program. So the staff is not allowed to use force. And again, no other catching or handling equipment was allowed or was given. They only have the towel. And most of the time, the towel is used to minimize the visual stimulation by covering the dog's eyes. If you look at hand catching as a technique, there's other advantages to that. First, we are looking at a lot of the dogs being friendly because they have some sort of interaction already with the people in the community. And these are what we call people dogs. And people dogs should be the target of sterilization programs because they usually have better access to a food source if people are feeding them, which means they have higher reproductive success rate. And also, if they're around people more, they're closer to the people on a daily basis, which means if they do get rabies or something, there's greater risk of dog bites if they're so close to the people, compared with dogs that may be frightened of people and tend to stay on the outskirts. Also, in terms of hand catching, is much more efficient. We can go to one location, stop the vehicle, and catch 20 dogs. We don't have to keep moving because the dogs are barking. If you catch the dogs with the nets, you catch 2-3 dogs, the other dogs get alarmed, start barking, and you have to drive and move on. We often can go to one location, pick up dogs from one location, we've done our catching for the day, and come back. Also, once you start feeding dogs, other dogs come out. They come out for the biscuits. Ooh, there's food. They're coming out instead of running away. We are able to go to the same location again and again. The dogs do not become net shy, do not become, scared of the catchers. They actually learn the green uniform, and the van is the biscuit van, and they come out for the food and for the friendship. We also can do regular post-release monitoring in the field. So if you look on the right, that's one of our vets, and he's just doing a post-op check. And that dog is completely not bothered. It's sleeping under the vehicle. The vet can just, check its wound, its incision, and everything is okay. There's no stress in that. And you can repeat that, every single day for the next 7 days. Also, there's a lot more support from the community. They understand what we're doing. It's a very novel approach. They're interested. And when we go back, we actually get more dogs because people are telling us where the dogs are, and people are bringing dogs to us. And
it's
also
close to time.
Okay. And also it allows for easy recatching if we want to do a mass vaccination program and revaccinate. I'm going to have to rush. Just to say that numbers and welfare is achievable. We're averaging 600 dogs per month. The limit is because we have limited kennel capacity. If we had more kennels, we could easily do 700 or 800. So ultimate goal is that we want our staff, our local project staff, and the general public to treat the dogs with care and compassion. And we're looking at impact at the human behavior level. We want the people's behavior to change. Now, in terms of our staff, we are able to say that we have compassionate, humane handling throughout the program. And there is a new welfare measuring method, which my colleague Heather will be talking about later today. And this is one way that we can measure the welfare in our program. The staff knowledge and expertise in welfare and handling continues to grow and improve because there's very little turnover, and staff morale is very, very high. They're very proud of what they're doing because they know that nobody else can do this, and this is a science. Community mobilization and responsible pet ownership, we're seeing increasing number of people bringing their dogs to our clinic. That's very positive. But more importantly, and this is the bit that is not measured at the moment, other than seeing it on a daily basis going out in the field, we are seeing and hearing about community adoption, whereas when we first picked up the dog, it may not be associated with anybody, but when we go back 1 week or 2 weeks later, people are saying, okay, that dog is now attached to that household or that person. People are adopting these dogs. Also, we are seeing increased sighting of people petting the dogs with their hands, and that's usually not seen in India. They don't touch street dogs because the street dogs are viewed as dirty. We see a lot of that now, especially in children. We are seeing individual cases of dogs becoming more friendly and touchable. So a dog that I know from the beginning of the project 6 months ago, we could not catch it. We left it alone. 6 months later, we go back. That dog is now hand catchable. Something in the community and its interaction with the people has changed. That dog has become friendly. We see that because we're able to continue catching second time, third time in the same area, and we're continuing still to find friendly dogs. And we believe that the dog behavior is changing either due to the behavior of the other dogs or the behavior of the people. But again, that's not measured. And lastly, which is very, very encouraging, is that I've had local newspaper reporters come up to me and say that it's now become fashionable to adopt street dogs, and many, many new people are adopting street dogs for pets rather than pedigrees. So there is human behavior change on the community and public level, and this is something we're looking at documenting and measuring in 2015. So very quick summary that this provides a model for achieving welfare within our project and outside in the community, and the impact is actual human behavior change. That this hand-catching methodology, it promotes care and compassion. It promotes compassion in the community, and that we're able to do education and community engagement without disrupting any of the existing ABC dog activities, and that we can reach high sterilization numbers to have an effect on managing dog population numbers without sacrificing welfare. And just one last very important point is, please do not start hand catching in your projects without proper training and infrastructure and setup. This is a comprehensive approach. It is not a new tool, a new hand catching technique. And very quickly, just want to say thank you to a lot of the people who made this happen. Harry Ekman, for example, was the one that first came up with the dog behavior score. Suzanne Rogers and Dr. Ellie Hebe really helped me with developing this concept of human behavior change. And Dr. Lex Hibby is the person who designed the database system and has given non-stop IT support all the way throughout. And a huge thank you to HSI, especially Rahul Sehgal, for giving me this project to play with, and without any pressure of making numbers, targets, or anything, to experiment and find out if it was actually work. And a huge thank you to my Jamshedpur team for their very, very hard work every single day. Thank you.